Konami's brand new course set Beyond the Brave has now become what I would consider it to be one of the most talked about sets since Chaos Origin, and even Chaos Origin has already gotten a lot of hype. Beyond the Brave might end up getting that same amount of hype because now, for the first time ever, Red Eye's Black Dragon could potentially be one of the most meta-breaking decks of the current format because Joey Wheeler has gotten himself new cards that we never expected. 10 brand new cards have been announced for the set Beyond the Brave. So let us get straight to it because there are plenty of cards to talk about in this set. So we're gonna kick things off with Swift Panther Warrior. Which is a 4-star Earth Beast Warrior with 2,000 attack, 1,600 defense, literally the same stats as the original Panther Warrior. And the first effect is a once per turn, which reads, during the main phase as a quick effect, you can tribute one of the monster from your hand or field, then activate one of these effects. Special summon one monster that mentions Dark Time Wizard from your hand or deck except this card. Send one spell or trap that mentions Dark Time Wizard from your deck to the grave. Second effect reads, cannot declare attacks unless a monster was tributed this turn. Okay, so it's basically the original Panther Warrior where you have to tribute a monster to in order for it to attack, but it's basically that on crack because you're able to either you can either special summon a monster from your hand or deck, which acts as sort of like a mini Cyber Dragon, or you can treat it as a Fool's Burial Goods, where you can send any spell or trap from your deck to your graveyard in order to get off any graveyard effects that you may have at your disposal, which, for the most part, you are going to end up summoning a monster like say this next one that I'm going to talk about, which is called Alligator's Sword Dragon Knight, which I'll talk about here in a second. Or you can summon out pretty much just anything. You can summon out pretty much any of the new monsters, except another copy of itself, which is again it's not bad. Plus it's perfect for it's perfect as sort of like a mini combo starter / extender because if you didn't commit to any normal summons turn 1 and you just committed to a bunch of special summons, like say the special summon of Red Eye's alternative Black Dragon, and then just like link it off or something like that, you're pretty much off to the races because even if you normal summon Swift Panther Warrior, you get to side draw out at pretty much any 4-star monster to your hand, to your board from the hand, which the only other 4-star is Fisherman Legend of the Sea, which again I'll be talking about that card here in a little bit. And then you could just either link them off into a link 2, or you can go into a potential rank 4 or whatever you may have at your disposal, which is kind of cracked. And the second effect, again, it's basically the same as the original Panther Warrior, except it says that this card cannot declare attacks unless a monster was tributed this turn. So it's similar to the original, but with a major twist, which is actually kind of crazy. Next up, we have Alligator Sword Dragon Knight. That's if this ad will stop showing up. There we go. which is a 5-star Wind Dragon with 1700 attack, 1500 defense, and the first two effects are both once per turn. The first effect reads, if this card is in your hand, you can reveal one other card in your hand that mentions Dark Time Wizard, special summon this card. Second effect, if this card is normal or special summon, you can add up to 2 spells or traps with different names from each other that mention Dark Time Wizard from your deck to your hand, then discard 1 card. Third effect says that this card can attack directly. So this is essentially a Cyber Dragon with a mini Graceful Charity, which honestly is kind of insane because you can pitch, because if you have a way to get Red Eyes into your graveyard, this card would be it, because that this card is a dragon. If you have Red Eyes, if you have Red MD in your hand, you can use up this card's Graceful Charity effect, discard Red Eyes Black Dragon, then sack this card off for Red MD. Red MD's effect triggers, you get to summon Red Eyes Black Dragon from your graveyard, and now you can essentially just commit to your board, commit to your normal summons, whatever you may have, and your end board, just off of this one card alone, is going to have at least 2 Red Eyes fusion monsters on board at the most, which is insane. The only thing is that this card's third effect, the question becomes, do you really want to use up its third effect? Not necessarily, unless I would probably say unless if your opponent has finds a way to negate your entire board during your turn. Because if you're going second and your opponent finds a way to pretty much just stop everything, then technically you could use up this card's third effect, but for the most part you're not really going to, because it's, as I said, you're going to be using up this card's first effect and its second effect, and then just sacking it off for a copy of Red MD to bring back Red Eyes Black Dragon, and then just go off from there, which is kind of insane. Next up, we've got Jinzo Energy Shocker, which honestly the artwork honestly looks pretty cool. I'll give it that. It's actually kind of cool. So, Jinzo is a 7-star Dark Machine with 2400 attack, 1500 defense, and the second effect is a once per turn. The first effect reads, this card's name becomes Jinzo while on the field or grave. Second effect reads, if this card is normal or special summon, you can destroy all traps your opponent controls, and if a card is set, reveal it. Then this card gains 300 attack for each card destroyed this way. Third effect reads, your opponent cannot activate trap cards or effects while you have another monster in your field or grave that mentions Dark Time Wizard. So, essentially, Foolish Burial Goods are going to be the 2 biggest cards that are going to completely be abused in this deck, because this card essentially becomes a mini floodgate, if you will. So this card can play around cards like Imperm. It can play around any of the counter trap. Well, not exactly the counter traps, but to be fair, there aren't a whole lot of counter traps that get played in the current format. Like, unless if they were archetype specifically, that's pretty much it. But it can also Dominus Impulse, Dominus Purge. I think it can out Dominus Purge because on summon it just pops everything. It literally just pops everything, and in order for you to get that effect off, you would need to have some way to ensure that your opponent cannot activate those cards in any capacity. So there are a couple of floodgates that you could use theoretically. Like for one, Zing Zang Hu is one that definitely comes into mind, because if you're going second, then you could theoretically find a way to activate it from hand. And there are ways. There are ways, but there's like super niche, if you will. But this basically acts as a harpy's feather duster for traps, and it also acts as the original Jinzo, essentially a floodgate for your opponent, which is kind of insane. Next up, we've got Fisherman, Legend of the Sea. And if you guys have not figured it out, they are basically retrains of the originals from the DM anime. So when you think of Swift Panther Warrior, you think of the original Panther Warrior. When you think of Alligator Sword Dragon Knight, you think of the fusion Alligator Sword Dragon, and then of course Energy Shocker, you think of the original Jinzo. Fisherman, you think of the legendary Fisherman, which hardly anybody plays that card now, because it got turned into an archetype in what was it, Legendary Duelist Duels from the Deep. The deck sucked. Like, the archetype just sucks. Let's just keep it real on that. Both of its effects are once per turn, and the first effect reads: if your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, or when their monster declares an attack and Umi or a card that mentions Dark Time Wizard other than this card is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Second effect reads: if this card is special summoned, you can target a monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and return this card on the field to the hand during the end phase of the turn. So this basically is a spirit monster, kind of similar to a spirit monster, where on the end phase you bounce it back to your hand. So this acts as your like mini hand trap, where if your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, or if they declare an attack while you have Umi on board, or if you have a card that mentions Dark Time Wizard on the field, you get to bring this card out, you get to pop the attacking monster, and then on end phase, you bounce it back to your hand, and you repeat the cycle over and over again. So this acts as sort of like a mini disruption in hand, which is absolutely nuts. Probably one of your best hand traps. I would probably say that this is a 2 of, because a 3 of, because of the fact that you can use is that with Swift Panther Warrior, you can use this card's first effect to special summon Fisherman, and then if your opponent activate the monster effect, you get to use Fisherman's effect, bring it out, you pop the opponent's monster, you overlay the first Fisherman plus Swift Panther Warrior into a rank 4, and then on end phase you bounce the second Fisherman back to the hand, which is kind of crazy. Speaking of Red Eyes, I mentioned that Red Eyes has become meta, and it's only going to get even more crazier from here, because Red Eyes has a brand new fusion that will shock you that might just shock everybody to their very core. Might just be one of the most broken fusion monsters ever devised, and it is known as Red Eye's Black Dragon Exceed, which not only does it have a regular artwork, it also has an overframe art. So here's the original. And here is the overframe. Yeah. This is the overframe and it looks badass. But what does this card do? Well, it is a 9-star Dark Dragon Fusion with 3,400 attack, 3,000 defense, and it requires Red Eye's Black Dragon plus a monster that mentions Dark Time Wizard. And it says that it must be either fusion summon or special summon from your action deck by attributing one face-up monster on either field. During the turn, a monster was destroyed by the effect of Dark Time Wizard. You can only special summon this card once per turn this way, no matter which method you use. So, the question becomes, could this become a Red Eye's fusion target? And the answer, my opinion, is yes. Because that this card is a Red Eye's Black Dragon, because that it is a Red Eye's fusion, the spell, you can use it to bring this card out. So hypothetically speaking, you can go Red Eye's fusion, pitch Red Eye's Black Dragon plus, I'll say, just to throw it out there, I'll say a Alligator Sword Dragon Knight as a random example. You bring this card out, and now you have two very powerful effects. However, because that you would activate Red Eye's fusion, you wouldn't be able to special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, which is what this card's first effect says. It says that if this card is special summoned, you can special summon one level 8 or lower monster from your hand or grave. So it essentially becomes a cyber ref system for the entire deck. The second effect reads that this card is unaffected by your opponent's activated monster and spell effects. So cards like Effect Veiler, cards like Forbidden Crown, Forbidden Droplet, Dark Ruler No More, Super Poly, you can't use them. You can't use cards like them on this card, which is insane. So it does essentially become essentially a vanilla, because again, the first effect is it's my understanding is that it's a hard ones, and it can only be used on summon. The second effect is it's essentially a floodgate. Like essentially, it is a crazy floodgate, and other than that, this is basically a 3,400 vanilla, which is, I mean, it's a beat stick. Not much to say about that. Next up, we've got Dark Time Wizard. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute, Dark Time Wizard, is that a monster? No. It is actually a quick play spell. Ironically enough. With the effect being a once per turn, and it also says that they can only use each of these effects once per turn. Add one card that mentions Dark Time Wizard from your deck to your hand, except this card. Also add one Dark Time Wizard from your grave to your hand during the end phase of the turn. Toss a coin and call it. If you call it right, destroy as many monsters your board controls as possible. And if you do, inflict damage to them equal to half those monsters' total or original attack. If you call it wrong, destroy all monsters you control. So it's not bad. It's actually kind of cracked. I mean, you get to basically Raigeki your opponent's entire board and deal them a shit ton of damage. So if your opponent has a board that can deal them over 8,000 damage, this card essentially becomes a game ender. And once the opponent realizes how much attack they have on board, they just end up scooping right then and there. So if you open with this card and you activate this card, your opponent is just gonna end up realizing, excuse me, your opponent's just gonna end up realizing, oh shit, I fucked up. I've got a board here that deals me damage to win my opponent the game. I'm just gonna scoop. You know what, my guy? Game 2. Let's just go to game 2. You got game 1's yours. So this card basically just says, I win. As long as your opponent does not do anything, you win. 100% you win. Interestingly enough, you can use this card on turn 2 because of the fact that you're the one that's going second. Because if your opponent wins the die roll and they go first, if you open with this card, you essentially have yourself a game ender, which is insane. So because that you're going second, it is exactly as I said. If you open with this card, you essentially just win. Absolutely insane. Next up, we've got Graceful Skull Dice. So it's basically Graceful Dice and Skull Dice rolled into one card. So it is a quick play spell with 2 separate effects. The first one reads, roll a 6-sided die twice and apply these effects in sequence for the rest of this turn. Monsters you control that mention Dark Time Wizard will gain attack and defense equal to the total times 200. Monsters your opponent controls will lose attack and defense equal to the total times 200. Second effect reads, if your opponent normal or special summons a monster while this card is in your grave, you can banish this card, then target one of those monsters, roll a 6-sided die twice, and the total of 6 or more, destroy that monster. So here's the crazy thing, right? It's Skull Dice, Graceful Dice, and Snipe Hunter rolled into one card. Think about that. Think about that, right? Snipe Hunter, one of the most powerful, unusable cards in the game. Because it acts as a double-edged sword. Because Snipe Hunter can either say I love you or it can say go fuck yourself. Because with Snipe Hunter, you pitch a card from your hands and you pick one of your opponent's cards and you roll a die. If the number comes up, I believe, a 2, 3, 4, or 5, then that card in question gets popped. If it comes up a 1 or a 6, then essentially nothing happens, and you pitch a card again, and the cycle repeats itself until you essentially have nothing in hand, in which case you're basically screwed. So yeah, it's the best worst card imaginable, as it's called. Graceful Skull Dice basically acts as all 3 cards in one. Skull Dice, Graceful Dice, and Snipe Hunter. Just enough said. Enough said. Next up, we've got Sleeping Scapegoats. Which is a quick play spell with the effect reading as follows. Special summon up to 4 scapegoat tokens, which are 1-star Earth Beasts with 0 attack and defense in defense. Then, if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon 1 Swift Panther Warrior from your deck. Also, for the rest of this turn, these tokens cannot be tributed for a tribute summon. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck except fusion monsters. If a card you control that mentions Dark Time Wizard would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy one of your tokens summoned this way instead. So this basically ensures that Swift Panther Warrior's effect becomes live, which is kind of cracked. And again, it's token spam. So the question becomes, can you use those tokens for a link summon? The answer is yes. You can use tokens for a link summon because you're not technically tributing them. You're using the tokens as the material for a link summon. And if my memory serves correct, it's as I said. It's as I said. The only thing with this card is that you're locked into fusions, which is fine, because you would need to find a way to protect your tokens from being popped by battle card fact. So that way, when your turn comes up again, you can link them off into whatever link monster you may have at your disposal, and then just go off from there, which is pretty insane. Next up, we have Foolish Grave Robber. Which is a normal trap with both of its effects being a once per turn. The first effect reads, send one card that mentions Dark Time Wizard from your deck to the grave, except this card. Then you can special summon a monster from either grave to your field. Second effect reads, you can banish this card from your grave, set one of these cards to your field. A spell or trap in your grave that mentions Dark Time Wizard, except this card, or a spell or trap in your opponent's grave. Think about this. You can set your opponent's Dominus Impulse to your board, to your back row. You can set it to your back row. You can set their imperm. You can set their Forbidden Droplet, Forbidden Crown, whatever they may have at their disposal. You can set it. You can even set their own Call by the Grave to your back row. And think about this. Now you have 2 call bys set in your back row, and your opponent can't do jack shit about it. Kind of crazy. And think about this. They are both once per turn. Are they both hard once per turns? No, they're actually soft once per turns, meaning that you can use these effects again every single turn. Kind of insane. The last card of the video is known as Reversal Box, which is a continuous trap. Excuse me, with 2 separate effects. The first effect reads, once per turn during the standby phase, roll a 6-sided die and place counters on this card equal to the result, max 6. Second effect reads, once per battle, if an opponent's monster attacks during damage cal, or when a monster effect is activated on your opponent's field, you can remove 1 counter from this card, target one of those monsters, toss the coin and call it. If you call it right, you can special summon a monster that mentions Dark Time Wizard from your grave, and if you do, until the end phase of this turn, change the targeted monster's attack to 0. Also, its effects are negated. It's Fairy Box on steroids. Let's just keep it real on that. It's Fairy Box on steroids, and this is probably going to be one of the most broken floodgates in the entire deck. So, the question becomes this. Is Red Eyes going to be meta with these new cards? Abso-fucking-lutely. We are going to see a format where Red Eyes is going to decimate the meta and potentially make Cool Tune not even playable anymore, which is pretty insane. Do I see that happening? Absolutely, 100%. As far as how the deck would look, a Red Eyes deck with these new cards, I don't really know how it would look. So I would love for someone to post in the comments a good deck recipe for the Red Eyes deck with these new cards, because I might I might build it on Master Duel and just mess around with it just to see how it works. Kind of interested. So if there is anyone that knows a good deck recipe for these new cards, drop the recipe in the comments below, and that will do it. Excuse me, for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more card discussions in the future, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and as always, make sure you guys are following me on all of my social media. All of my ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.